Hello and welcome, my dear friend. You've been shrinking to survive for so long, it almost started to feel natural. But something's shifting. The old space? It's starting to itch, not because it's evil, but because it's too small, too quiet for the power rising inside you, too slow for the fire that's moving through your chest now. You're outgrowing things you used to call home, and they feel it. The ones who built their comfort around your they feel it. This message is for the ones who've been spiritually growing behind the scenes, but now the seams are breaking. The room can't hold you anymore. And it's not your ego talking. It's your frequency-breaking ceilings. You can't unknow what you now know. You can't fit in places your soul's already left. And you can't stay still in environments your energy is now too loud for. It started quietly. A discomfort here, a hesitation there, a voice inside whispering, "You're not supposed to be here anymore." At first, you ignored it. Thought maybe it was you being impatient again. Thought maybe you were being dramatic. But now, the walls feel like they're closing in. Conversations don't land. Rooms don't feel safe. Even laughter feels thinner than it used to. Not because you're broken, but because you're evolving. There comes a point in your journey where you're not just healing, you're breaking out. And when that moment comes, everything that once felt fine suddenly feels like chains. You're not crazy, you're not ungrateful, you're just becoming. And here's the part no one talks about. People can feel it before you say a word. They feel your absence, even while you're still physically present. Because energy always leaves first. Spirit always departs before feet ever take the first step. The people who once needed your softness now sense your boundaries. The ones who loved you when you were convenient now squirm around your calling. You've become too expensive for their comfort zones, too expansive for their expectations, and they feel you outgrowing them. You don't need to announce anything. Your silence says more now. Your posture has changed. Your gaze doesn't reach for approval anymore. You're not chasing. You're not explaining. You're simply becoming undeniable. And the world around you is adjusting to that reality. Some will cheer, some will distance, some will try to pull you back into roles that no longer fit. But don't be fooled by the emotional pull of old dynamics. When God starts stretching your spirit, anything that tries to confine you starts to feel suffocating. Even if it once felt like family. Even if it once was love. Because here's the truth. Love can't keep you small. And real alignment won't ask you to dim. If you've felt uncomfortable lately, if things that used to fulfill you suddenly feel hollow, if you feel the urge to run but don't know where to go, it's not failure. It's a spiritual growth spurt. And those are never clean, never calm, never convenient. You're not being torn apart, you're being resized. And everything you're leaving behind, it served a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. They feel you outgrowing them, not because you said anything, but because your energy no longer contracts to fit their needs. And that's a beautiful, holy thing. You're not just stepping out of a situation. You're stepping out of a version of yourself that made survival look like success. For years, you were applauded for how well you endured, for how quiet you kept your needs, for how gracefully you tolerated being overlooked. But your soul never signed a long-term lease with that version of you. It was temporary housing, a sacred holding space, not your final form. You didn't betray anyone by shifting. You simply stopped betraying yourself. And now, everything that was built around your containment is starting to tremble. Not because you're shaking things on purpose, but because truth always rearranges the room. Some will say you changed, that you used to be so easy to be around, that you're becoming distant, harder to predict, more selfish. But they don't realize you were never easy. You were just quiet. You were just doing the spiritual math in your head, asking, is it worth it to stay small just so they're comfortable? And now you know the answer. You've given so much grace to people who only loved the version of you that didn't challenge them. That didn't ask for depth. That didn't require presence. That didn't reflect back their avoidance. But as you rise, your presence starts becoming a mirror. And mirrors make people uncomfortable because they don't just show who you are, they reveal who they're refusing to become. Don't shrink to protect them from their own discomfort. Don't return to old rooms just because you know the way the furniture was arranged. You're not meant to be familiar anymore. You're meant to be free. The discomfort you're feeling, it's not a sign you're off track. It's confirmation that your old environment can no longer host your destiny. Even your body knows it. You feel tired after conversations that once gave you energy. You walk into old rooms and your chest tightens. You wake up in spaces that once felt safe, and you feel like you're in someone else's life. Because you are. You're living in the shadow of a story that already ended, but no one told you to close the book. So here's your permission. Close it. Let the chapter be sacred. Let the memories be holy. But don't force yourself to stay in a narrative just because you invested time in it. Your calling has moved, and your spirit is already halfway into the next place. That's why the air feels thin where you are. That's why things aren't flowing like they used to. That's why you feel unseen, even when you're surrounded. Because God is disrupting the illusion of comfort, so you don't confuse it with alignment. And here's the part they don't expect. You won't announce your exit. You won't make a scene. You'll simply stop dimming, and that will be loud enough. Some people only felt powerful because they kept you uncertain. They were never actually in control. They just knew you hadn't realized yours yet. But now you know, and they feel it. In your silence, in your presence, in the way you no longer give long explanations for your peace, in the way you no longer apologize for who you're becoming. You're not just outgrowing them. You're evolving past the entire dynamic, the unspoken contracts, the patterns, the roles you never agreed to, but somehow kept playing. And here's the divine truth. This was always the plan. You weren't meant to stay where you started. You weren't made to be tolerated. You were born to take up space, in love, in light, in purpose, in full clarity. And you're stepping into that now, whether they're ready or not. Yes, it might feel lonely at first. Yes, it might feel like you're walking through a hallway with no clear door. But don't panic in the pause. That silence you hear, that space you feel, that's not absence. That's God preparing the new room. You didn't miss your chance. You're just too aligned to fit into misalignment anymore. And the people who are meant to meet you in this next space, they won't ask you to explain your glow. They'll recognize it, because they carry the same one. So, walk forward. Not because you're proving anything, but because you're finally becoming everything you were never allowed to be before. Let them feel it. Let the walls shift. Let the rooms tremble. You're not leaving to hurt anyone. You're leaving to honor the size of your spirit. And that is the holiest kind of growth. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. If this message resonated, please like, share it with someone who might benefit, and subscribe to stay connected. Continue your awakening journey by choosing one of the videos on your screen that resonates with you the most. See you there.